We have an open seat for mayor. I am not running for re-election. And we have 5 candidates that are running for that seat. And so we have also 3 open city council seats that are also open. And those seats have 3 in seat 1 that are running for seat 1. There is 1 in seat 2, but there's also a write-in candidate that filed before the deadline. And seat 5 also has 3 that they have a lot of background coming into it. Okay. Can we get a traffic signal or a crosswalk installed at South Meridian and Calderwood? Our community development department is not here tonight, and so I have no idea how to answer that. However, I will tell you that there's a couple of ways. If you find an area in our community that needs a transportation improvement, we don't do roads in the city of Meridian. Those are covered, the local roads by Ada County Highway District and the state roads by the Idaho Transportation Department. However, we do have a transportation commission that listens to some of the issues that are of concern to our citizens, and they make recommendations to that agency. And certainly, if any of my directors have anything that would like to stand up and ask it. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Tammy, and we appreciate being here this evening. My question in regards is in regard to growth.
At any point, let me know. So,
Have to be a citizen. I live reach out, and the growth in Meridian has been stupendous. You know much better than the rest of us. But I'm wondering if the city of Meridian and the other cities in Ada County and probably the state are committed to the fact that progress for the city means continued growth. And the fact that the developers keep coming in and covering up more land. I have a 33-year professional background in education in another state, who also was fighting the problem, but not like it has in Ada County. In Meridian, it's year after year. We go through bond issue after bond issue after bond issue because the state legislature refuses to follow their constitutional commitment to support the school in Idaho. They haven't done that strictly in the state of Idaho. To get the most people here.
Important to come up and join me as well. My dad was a football coach at Bora High School when they first opened, and he taught me to be competitive, but I never set out to be the top 10. Some of you are here, so that's why we landed, and we landed in our kids. People are family oriented, and because farmers have a property right to sell their land, and it is designated in a comprehensive plan what that future land use is allowed. And so what we have tried to do is grow to our comprehensive plan with levels of service and the cost as well as we can to the growth that we're.
It's a great question, and thank you for being an educator. The question is, what are we going to do about growth, and it's growing so quick? That's on a big point of why we're growing crazy and why there's such a huge demand. The work that preceded myself and Madam Mayor and Charlie Roundtree, Keith Bird, you know some of these folks, Grant Kingsford, Bob Corey, and folks that came before all of us. They did a really good job in establishing a plan of what's most important for Meridian. So the focus back then, which is quite frankly, some of the cause of the problem is things were done really well. So the focus has always been on being an extremely safe community, being a community focused on families, trying to prioritize open space and public safety. Some of those core city functions have been a focus for decades. And the folks that preceded us stayed true to a master plan that kept those as a priority. So with the consequence of that, very safe community, lots of great demand. So everyone is moving to the valley and in particular to Meridian. So how do you solve growth? Well, one of the ways is you don't be so great. And that's not a very good answer. But that's the risk. I think that's the risk for our community. For all of us, we take that very seriously. The risk is, in the short term, you grow, and it's exciting, and you think that's what's best for your community. But you can't do it if it jeopardizes what made you great in the first place. And so some of the exciting challenges, we 7 new council members and the new mayor, ones after that. So our responsibility is to try and do what, I don't want them to grow. I want them to be young. And if I could control it, they'd be forever. But it's not going to happen. So that's not easy to do. But that's the born here, you came here. So we owe that responsibility. So growth is coming. It's not going to stop, but we can be responsible in how we do it.
Other question?
We got a wireless mic.
I just have one question. I don't know whether the city really uses impact fees, but new development always makes a need for education, new schools, new roads, new public utilities, and some communities do that. I was just curious what the Meridians.
Be used so when a new property gets built, that the developer pays a fee up front to cover certain capital expenditures for large equipment and buildings. Meridian does. We use the tools, all of the tools that the state of Idaho allows us to use. So we collect impact fees for parks, and we've been doing this for a number of years. Many of the parks in our community were funded over years, albeit that's way behind, but nonetheless, the in large apparatus, because the state of Idaho, your whole city is behind in construction. So that's one of the areas where growth doesn't pay for itself. It plays catch up, and our children suffer, in my opinion.
And there is one more thing, and this is probably important, as right now there is a legislative committee on property taxes. And so they're looking at cities' new construction. Cities' new construction is to pay for growth. The impact fees pay for capital expenditures. The new construction and property taxes pay for the operation and maintenance of those new facilities. So pay attention to that, because they're threatening cities that are rapidly growing like ours to reduce those new construction, which will lessen the ability for growth to pay for growth. The city, during the last 20 years, and even before that, has been resolute in listening to our citizens that growth should pay for growth. And as Councilman Borden said, we use every tool that is allowed. And I want to give kudos to our current city council. We just recently updated our impact fees, and the city hasn't always charged 100% of the impact fee that we've been allowed to. But they are now, because they have been listening, and we have a capital or comprehensive financial plan that projects our finances out 10 years. And every year we update that. Actually, every decision made by council, we update this forecast to make sure that our line is maintaining to the growth and to the cost of doing business. And now we needed to charge the entire fee, and the council stepped up and did that. And I was very grateful that they used the numbers that were provided by our finance department. And we're a city that has no debt, and we save before we spend. We don't incur debt, and that has been the philosophy of those before us and have been maintained clear to today. So that was a great question. We appreciate that.
Thanks for the answer, and then awesome. But you've done a marvelous job with this.
Thank you. So we'll take a couple more questions from those online, and then we'll come back to you and see if it has spurred additional. I think we answered that one, and so we can go to the next. What steps is the city taking to maintain a high level of safety as we continue to grow? So there was a statistic that I heard the mayor of Boise use, and so I quickly, it was on the news, and so I quickly, because I am competitive, I quickly challenged our chief to give me numbers to let me know, so how is Meridian doing? Well, Mayor Beater was talking about reduced levels of crime in the city of Boise. And that certainly as it relates to population to crime ratios, right? So in Meridian, our population since 2004 has grown 147%. Our crime has decreased almost 30%, for a net of a decrease of our crime levels by 57.2%. And I will invite Sergeant Parsons to come up, and then I'll ask Chief Niemeyer to talk on the fire side. But I want you to see the pride and the attention to customer service, to providing the best public safety services we absolutely can. And so, Sergeant?
Hi guys, I'm Matt Parsons. I've been a police officer for 29 years. Proudly, I work by far in the best community that there is around. I've ridden in a lot of police cars all over the nation, and in some of those cop cars, they wouldn't even go into a neighborhood. I'm like, we're the police, we have guns. We can go into this neighborhood. And they're like, no, we don't go into that neighborhood. I couldn't understand it, because my community is not that way. We have a relationship with our public that makes me so proud. I could go into any neighborhood, gunless if need be, and every citizen out there is going to address me, say hi, how are you? Maybe not so, you get a few every now and then, don't want to wave so much. I don't judge. So the whole point is that this community has so much that a lot of communities strive for. We've already achieved years and years ago. So the question is what are we doing to make sure that we're going to continue this great level of service as we grow? The biggest thing that we can do, that I'll ask of you to do to help us, is maintain our culture. Our culture, you know, our citizens determine what's good and bad, right and wrong. You don't need the police for that, right? You've all been there. You've seen somebody do something and you made a judgment right then, like, they shouldn't do that. And so we make that determination as community members, and so we set the tone. And so as people are moving here, if they see us maintain this culture that we have, that we love, that we raised our children here, I raised my kids, I live here in Meridian as well, raised my kids here, and if they see that, then they should, most of them will follow what we are presenting, what we represent in our city. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. So what are we doing as a police department to make sure that we are staying safe? We never ever go, hey, we grew 7,500 people this year, yay. It isn't like that, but what happens is if we grew 7,500 people this year, that just means we've got to work a little bit harder, And so everybody comes to work knowing that you guys depend on us to keep you safe. Now we average about 200 calls for service, I think this week, each day, 200 calls for service, and that can be any type of call for service, from suicides to car crashes to burglaries, things like that, right? But you guys don't hear a lot about that because we're working really hard to make sure that it really isn't on the news all the time, right? And that doesn't mean we're not sharing the information. Low crime does not mean no crime, but we're awful proud to say that we have one of the lowest crime rates around. And so that's really what makes us proud, is that we respond quickly to our calls. We address the call that needs to be addressed right then and there. And you guys expect us to do that. You want us to show up and do something about the bad situation that's going on. And so to do that, what we have done is the council and the mayor have been so great. They are putting more employees on our payroll for us for the police department. That's nice. We've increased, I think we're getting 13 new police officers. It's going to take a little while to get them hired, and part of the problem that we struggle with when you guys say, well, what are we doing about it? Part of the problem is that it can take, for instance, these last positions that we only had 25 applicants for these last positions that we tried to fill. Now only 2 or 3 may make it through the process to even be considered for being hired. And we used to get anywhere from 400 to 700 applications for one position. So that has reduced for some reason. And so that's one of the things that we're struggling with. The other thing is we need to make sure that we maintain the officers that we already have here, hired for the city of Meridian. We want to make sure that everything is competitive, that they stay with us, with Meridian, because we've invested a lot into them. And so that works really well for Meridian. I'm proud to say we absolutely have a fantastic police department. I can't be any more proud to work there. The other thing is we're trying to not let our call times decrease. So now that, when I started here, I think the city had, we went into about 12 square miles of city when I started here. Now we're into 70 square miles of city, where we have Meridian city limits within 70 square miles here. And so now my call time to respond to a call may take a lot longer to get all the way to the north corner up there by Shind and McDermott, that area over there, if I'm all the way down by Columbia and Locust Grove. And so what we try and do is break out the city to where we can have patrol officers in beat areas. So they can work in these 3 different areas that we've set up. That way the officers are closer to the crimes that are occurring. We also pay attention to how many crimes occur in those areas, and therefore we increase the number of officers that work in each of those areas based on the call load. So in our area 3 south of town, we may only have 1 or 2 officers on, to where up here in the north end of town, we may have 3 or 4 on, because there's a lot more traffic, the call numbers are higher. So those are several of the things that we're trying to do to improve that. The other thing that we're doing is when we are hiring people to come here to work for us, not just us, the fire department, the whole city does this, we have to find people that are of like minds. We have to hire a police officer that truly cares for their citizens and will listen to what they're saying and be concerned and have empathy for what they're going through. We don't want a robot. We don't want somebody coming in and just the facts, ma'am, and that kind of thing. We want somebody who feels like they're already from Meridian, if that makes sense. And so that's what we work really hard to find. And if they're not the right fit, they're not going to be here. Right? We all try and determine that. You citizens let me know how my police officers are doing far before I see how they're doing sometimes. I'll get the phone calls. But I'm fortunate, or very glad to say that a lot of our phone calls that we get are people saying, hey, your officer today was awesome. I love hearing that. I never get sick of hearing that. So, but we are doing a lot to prevent crime. We educate as much as we can on preventing crime. Construction companies, citizens in residential areas, trying to get them to reduce the amount of crime that occurs in their neighborhood by locking up things, getting their valuables out of sight, that type of thing. So that's really what we're doing. Yes, sir?
Just out of curiosity, how many police officers do you have in the department?
So we're authorized to have 127, and right now we're about 15 shy of getting that. So we have 13 of the new openings that we were given and 2 other openings that we had previously had. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am?
What's all that paraphernalia you've got on?
Yeah. So this is my camera. This is my body camera. I use it on any call where I'm using enforcement action, and that could be as simple as writing a citation or dealing with somebody that is having a mental crisis, that type of thing. So this camera records everything for us, and it helps protect us and, you know, protect the citizen as well. So that's great. Yeah, the normal stuff here, right? But I have a radio and a taser. The taser has been a successful tool to help us use less than lethal force on several situations. It's been a great tool. And then bulletproof vest on occasion. We had an officer that was shot last year. And I'm glad to say he's up and handling calls right now. So he's covering calls, as a matter of fact, while I'm here. Pardon? Is this a club? Yes. Yes, it is. This is an expendable baton. And it works really good for like breaking windows to get kids out of cars, things like that. So it's not always about, you know, whatever. So,
It works for that too.
yes, sir.
How does your pay scale compare to the surrounding cities?
Right now, we're doing really good. These guys saw, I think it was last year, made sure that we were up with everybody else, and we're doing great. It's like the city, right? It has to be looked at every now and then, and but it's really good right now. I can't complain at all, not at all. You guys honestly pay me very well to do this job, and I can earn all of that pay in 9 seconds. I'm telling you, but But any other questions? Anybody else? All right. Thank you, guys.
Tough act to follow. So again, I'm Mark Eamon, I'm the fire chief. I've been here 10 years. I want to echo something Sergeant Parsons said. There is nowhere else I would rather be working. And I can tell you we have 75 firefighters on shift, working 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And every day they come to work excited to serve you. I can tell you that. We have a terrific department. Unlike Sergeant Parsons, I don't have a lot of bling on. Maybe that's why I would like to look a bit better. I know he said he got waved at. Our firefighters actually get cookies delivered to their fire station. For him. To the question, how are we addressing growth? How are we maintaining the service we provide you? We have a department goal that we get to any critical emergency, your house fire, a cardiac arrest, a heart attack, any of that within 5 minutes. And we track that every single month. We track that performance. We watch that performance, and as it starts to rise a little bit, we start engaging with our department leaders and our elected officials and the mayor on the need for when that next fire station is going to come. Right now, we're at about 5 minutes and 16 seconds on average, so we're pretty much close to our goal, but we are seeing that rise. As more homes are being built, traffic is a little bit more congested, takes us a little bit longer to get there. We start planning for that next station. Right now, we have Fire Station 6 that's going to open in March on Overland Road. With this growth, and we've communicated with our mayor and elected officials, that next station, number 7, is not too far behind with the growth that we're seeing. We're also looking at different ways to respond. Traditionally, we respond with a fire truck, a fire engine. That takes 3 people on that fire engine. We're also looking at some other shorter vehicles, smaller vehicles that can maneuver quicker with 2 people on it. That's another way to serve you as a community to keep our response times down. So that's what we do in the fire department, very similar to the police department. I appreciate the question on impact fees that got asked. We do collect impact fees. The beauty of impact fees is that they help pay for the capital, as Councilman Gord alluded to. So they'll pay for the fire station. Right now, it's about $5 million to build a fire station. They pay for a fire engine. That's about $560,000 roughly for those fire engines. The challenge is to open up a new station with the people in it is about $1 million. And we have to balance that with the needs of every other department in the city to maintain the level of service that we have citywide. I will tell you from my perspective as the chief, we have a great director team that works together on the needs collectively of the city. You'll find that the police and fire departments have a relationship unlike no other anywhere, in my opinion, in the nation. We get along great, as competitive as we are, we joke around. We get along really well, and we balance each other's needs. So collectively, we're trying to grow to meet that need.
There's just one thing that I wanted to add is we depend on our community. So we can't be a safe community without the engagement of our citizens. And I'm really proud to say the relationships we have with our police department and keeping our neighborhood safe has been tremendous. And without that collaboration, because 125 officers cannot serve an entire city, we really depend on those relationships with our citizens, and it's been great. One of the things that both departments do, all of our departments do, we have a quarterly dashboard that we present to our elected officials to show them response times and other data points that are important to have our elected officials know, so that when they get asked a question from our citizens, that they have that information to share. And we're getting ready we have our checkbook on our website. You can go in and drill down to any financial piece that you want to know. Well, our next phase is adding dashboards. And so you can run your own dashboards with the data that we present to see how we're doing in providing services to you. That transparency piece is very important, and we're excited to be among only a small percentage of cities nationwide that are offering that level of transparency. So just on behalf of Sergeant Parsons, cookies for cops are a really good thing. Okay, more questions?
I saw on the news that you broke the vote for having no handheld phones. And I am so happy. I taught driver safety with AARP for 10 years. And I always talk to people about using 2 hands on the wheel and paying attention. It's really dangerous. I'm so glad you did that.
Thank you for your taking the risk of being a driver's ed. That's always frightening. I did it right along with my daughter when she was learning, and that was frightening. Yeah, our city council last night did have a split vote on whether to do the hands-free ordinance in the city of Meridian. 7 years ago, to change behavior of the #1 distraction without making it have to have an accident first or making it a misdemeanor. This is an infraction, and it doesn't count points to your insurance, but they've come across because of this distracted driver that's had a handheld device and the damage that it does to not just property, but to the people inside and the families that are associated with them. So I appreciate the courage of those. And, you know, the vote was a little deceiving. There were 2 others that supported it in a more limited fashion. Some of those things that I decided emphasized the importance of it. And you lose a lot of those precious moments. And I know that people see the decision-making side or other aspects of that role as mayor. What they don't see is what suffers in a lack of time to spend with the people that we love. And I will now have that opportunity. I did promise my husband no decisions for the first 3 to 6 months. But I did tell him it would cost him, because now I'll be home and I'll see what needs painted, what needs remodeled, or need to do some stuff in my yard. And so anyway, I don't know, but I will be involved in the city. I love the city of Meridian. We're in the midst of updating our comprehensive plan. It goes to our city council next month. And after it's adopted, there's going to be a number of next steps. And I started as part of those next steps. And I'm excited about the future of Meridian. And so I'd love to play my role as a citizen in being a part of that. And I'm going to join some of our awesome volunteers that greet you every time you come into City Hall. I'm going to be watching the staff members, and I guess I'm going to have a lot of fun. So thank you. Okay, well, we'll go. So why does the city continue to approve new subdivisions and large projects with the traffic issues the way they are? And I see Joe Borton's name on this one. Yeah, you may want to speak first. Because I might use that answer I told them about.
Thank you. So, why do we approve new subdivisions, large projects with traffic issues? One of the main reasons that this is a great question is the disconnect. Most people know this, not everyone knows it, but one of the challenges we have in Meridian and in Ada County is you have a city who does all of the land use planning, review and approval of these subdivisions, and we have zero control and authority of the roads. Not only in that subdivision, but throughout our community. Back in 1971, our valley created the Ada County Highway District. We hear about it, and it's a different entity, and it has its own tax revenues, its own impact fees. And the challenge that we face, large projects and small projects, and it's been a problem for decades, is that disconnect. So whether we're going to approve or deny a large application, what we're not doing is making direct control and decisions over the roadways. And the roadways that are nearby, making those direct decisions on what to expand, where to direct funding for roads, and that's a problem. I think that's a problem, quite frankly, with the disconnect between a road agency and a city making land use decisions. So throughout the entire country, every city, every state who has road departments to deal with, of all the different departments in our entire nation, there is one in our country where the county runs roads, disconnected from the city. The cities don't control roads. Maybe not because it's the best idea. I think it had good intentions, but it comes with consequences. So that's a challenge. The second challenge that comes with that, quite frankly, is the lag that we have. And we've had that for decades where projects, land use, residential, commercial, are reviewed and roads are catching up. The funding follows. And if you get into the highway district's capital improvement plan, and you'll see their roadway improvements are all designed to catch up. And that's one of the problems that comes with that disconnect as well.
You know, I'll add that as those larger subdivisions come in, so do improvements along with them. Council can ask for turn lanes that turn into the subdivision. They can ask for widening for a center turn lane. They can ask for certain things if they're being annexed, and maybe if anyone needs to get any further into that, that's why we bring our attorney. But ACHD has its own elected officials, and so they make the decisions on those things. But I'll tell you, in the city of Meridian, we've been very active because we know it is an issue for our citizens. So we have brought solutions to the table, in some cases 5 to 10 years ahead of time, through public-private partnerships. 90% of the public-private partnerships that ACHD has had have been driven by the city of Meridian and the development community. This is where the development community will do an off-site improvement that is not associated with their development at their cost and today. Then they get paid back over time through impact fees. So you get a lower cost project, you get it today, and the developers do take the risk on how soon it is that they get paid back for those improvements. We also went to the state because there was a tool that they had that was legislation that was passed for a single project in North Idaho. Now, you're not supposed to pass laws for one project, but we wanted to make that more usable for the rest of the state. And this is called, people call it the STAR legislation. It's Sales Tax Anticipated Revenue. You have seen one lane from I-84 to River Valley going north that was put in by using STAR money by the village at Meridian. They did the improvement and then they're paid back through sales tax. So it's not using impact fees. Those fees then can be used for other projects. We are using that to widen Chinden. We couldn't wait any longer for the state to fund that. And so we have two developments that are upfronting the cost. They can't get a certificate of occupancy until that road is widened. And we'll get an expanded Chinden Boulevard, which we've been wanting for the last 10 years. So there are things that, even though we don't have road authority, we get kind of creative and kind of noisy. We get really noisy. I heard that from Pamela Roberts. She mentioned that is, yeah, it takes us sometimes to get very noisy. And because of that, we've gotten many of the projects that we have. I never understood why one city had to fight so hard to get projects funded when you see a 5-lane highway in front of Soda Springs. And I have to fight for an interchange. Or I have to fight for a widening of Highway 2026 that is it's drowning in traffic. But we fight and we'll find a way to get the improvements because we hear our citizens. And I think that's what you should expect us to do. Can we ensure that some of our land is saved just as it is for use as public parks, sports fields, or libraries? We need to save some of our farmland for the natural beauty. Who has a plan for this? We do have a Parks Master Plan, and I didn't talk to Steve ahead of time, but we have been active in trying to define open space and where we can preserve it or how we can find innovation. So Steve also used to be a city planner. So he can also talk about how we can get better open space in that community design too.
Good evening. So my name's Steve Sidaway. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the city. I can probably best answer the parks side of this. So we do plan ahead for parks. We do have a very comprehensive park system master plan. We developed it about 5 years ago. We've been following it and it's about ready for an update. We're trying to keep it fresh about every 5 years. So looking to update that hopefully next year. We use impact fees, as have already been described, to build parks to keep up with growth. And it has been a very busy few years building parks to keep up with growth. We have a measure called our level of service, which is measured in acres per thousand, and we've historically been right around 3 acres per 1,000 residents of developed parkland in the city of Meridian. It's felt pretty good. We get a lot of compliments on the amount of parks we seem to have, so we try and do that. Well, with the growth, we opened 3 parks a year ago. Hillsdale Park, south of here where the YMCA is. Rita Husky Park in North Meridian near 10 Mile. And Keith Bird Legacy Park up near Chinden. With opening 3 parks in 1 year, we still actually lost ground a little bit in our metric of acres per thousand. This year we got Fuller Park donated to us from the West Virginia Rec District, and we opened, I don't know if anyone's had a chance to visit it yet, but we're very proud of the park we opened this summer called Discovery Park in South Meridian. It's been a great new addition to our park system, and the addition of these have helped us maintain that level with the growth. Settlers Park is actually right and things like that. Settlers Park was built similarly over a period of about a decade with many phases. It wasn't built in one phase, it was built in
Community. There's a much
The last 24 years. Very well deserved.
Thank you.
Driver or director, where we all pull together, that means that behind the scenes, it's all done so efficiently and expertly that we do not have 40 years. This lady has earned my total respect and Mayor. Rubbing off on me. For the last 2 years, Carson has taken the time to visit